Good afternoon, Advanced Biology. I am sorry I'm not there with you. I was actually really looking forward to getting to teach you guys because Mr. Altaf has senior seminar, but Ethan, one of my 2-year-olds, woke up last night with a fever and he's been crying every hour and I can't send him to daycare and my husband stayed home last night, so it's my turn. So I don't want to leave you without some explanation here because the stuff you're doing today is really cool. So, okay, let's get started. The sub will need to go to the handout table, which is like the table where my big timer is in front of the file cabinet. And he or she should be passing out this page to you guys. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to it, and then I'm going to set you up for the activity, and I hope you get a lot of those activity. Okay, so let's review where we're at. So far, you guys are like, oh my gosh. Some of you have, well, let me back up. You've been doing this macromolecule sort activity, and some of you have loved it because you love the chemistry part of stuff and looking for patterns within macromolecules. And some of you have been like, why does this feel like chemistry again? Well, you'll start to figure out why. Now we really take off and start to understand what these mean. So let's review. The stuff that you should be able to do is number one, you should be able to look at the molecules that are within a molecule. Look at the atoms within a molecule and identify what type of atom it is. So with this, you're looking at every carbon has an oxygen attached to it. It's really oxygen saturated. So this is a carbohydrate. I can also tell there's 2 ring structures here. It's a disaccharide. I should be able to come over here and look at these 4 rings and know that's a lipid. And I should be able to see some things within that. For example, I can see that, right here, there's a sticky part because that's a polar low group there. And there's a sticky part over here. But then all this part in the middle is non-sticky. Wonder what that might mean. Well, cholesterol is really important in cell membranes. You'll get to see that in today's activity. Then I come down here to proteins. Oh my gosh, you guys, proteins are so cool. And they're so important. They're everything. They're the workers of the body. Remember in honors bio, we spent a lot of time on looking at their structure of the function. We looked at actin, looked like little hooks. We looked at myosin, which are like little rubber bands. We looked at hemoglobin and drew them as little inner tubes. And we looked at them in terms of cancer, being able to turn on or off the cell cycle. They're so important, and you'll learn even more deeply why they're important in our units to come. With the proteins, we also did our Hagfish lab where we started with DNA and RNA and then transcribed and translated it and then made Hagfish slime. All that to try to help you understand how proteins are made, the relationship between DNA and proteins, and how that determines your traits. Oh yeah, determines your traits. Okay, so when you look at this structure here, you should look at the NCC background and the carboxyl group over here, and then know that this part hanging off is the R group. And since this is the same on every protein, actually these are the monomers of proteins, which are called amino acids, this part right here is what gives them their properties. Monday we do a lab where this will make more sense to you. And then finally, we look over here, and this is part of our nucleotides. And we'll learn a lot about nucleotides in our genetics unit. So just to give you a little snapshot of where we're headed, my Mr. Althoff is here. He's going to take you through a bunch of stuff about the cells, and that we really kind of started today. So we're going to do Friday and Monday, wrapping up macromolecules and look at the application of them. Then you'll have a quiz, and the quiz should be just the stuff I looked over here, identifying what the heck these things are, what type of macromolecule they are, and then knowing the function of them. And these activities that we do will really help you with that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, know that within these units, we're giving you challenging stuff that's high level, and you need to extract the basic information out of it. So as we go over the reviews, you should become really familiar with it. So that deep dive should help you understand the application to then extract out the important information. So we're looking at having a quiz over macromolecules. I think Mr. Althoff had that planned for Tuesday, but maybe he'll do it on Wednesday. He'll let you know what he decides on that. Okay, so I'm going to take over this for a moment. So far, just to kind of back up, we started this unit looking at this case study, which I thought was so cool because you were introduced to how drugs work. Like, how do we design drugs? And what you figured out is this drug is called an antibiotic, and it is designed to block an active site of an enzyme in bacteria. So when you're sick with bacterial diseases, what are you trying to do? Kill the bacteria. So this drug was designed to fit right here, which is a part of the protein in this bacteria that does a really important job. The job it does is makes the cell membrane, makes the cell wall. And without this, the bacteria dies. Well, now take a look at the molecule that was made. Ah, look. Do you see some polarity there? Does that polarity make you think that this molecule is going to be sticky to this part of the enzyme? Yeah, we use polarity and non-polarity in designing drugs. We also use them when we are trying to design vaccines. What a vaccine is the instructions for a protein that mimics one of the spikes for example, on the coronavirus. So we had to figure out the instructions so that we were able to put a protein together that had the right shape that mimicked the virus so your body could learn how to fight it off. So man, we are really in the bedrock of understanding how the body works with this, but also how drugs are designed. And anybody going into the medical field, this is a huge importance. And then for the rest of you that are not going into it, it's just, you'll find it's really interesting, I think. So hold tight, and you've been doing a great job so far putting in the work. So what today's activity focus on is lipids. Okay, and lipids we think are just fats, and sometimes we're like, oh, is fat's even good? You guys, we need fats. Okay, so as you look at this is, you see, I like this picture because you see all the macromolecules except your nucleotides. So what do you see here? These yellow things here, those are lipids. Guess what that is? Your cell membrane. Your cell membrane is made up of these individual circles with little tails, two tails. And then there's another one down here, two tails and an individual circle. And then on the inside of the cell, it's a watery environment. The outside of the cell, it's a watery environment. So how can this happen? Then just kind of keep looking. There's some proteins that, because of their polarity, can be embedded in the cell membrane, and they make little protein channels or windows to get in and out of your cells. That's important. Okay, diabetes can be caused when you can't get through one of these. Cystic fibrosis is caused when one of these malfunctions. It's a big deal, you guys. Keep looking, and you have these little carbohydrate chains hanging off, which are important in cell-to-cell communication. And then you have some proteins which aren't actually going through the cell membrane, but are on top of the cell membrane, and that has to do with their polarity. Okay, so let's go to the worksheet. I'll get you introduced, and I'll set you up for how it's going to work. Okay, so here is your worksheet. It says membrane structures. What molecules make up a membrane? So when we're talking about these molecules, you're going to say stuff like proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and you're going to understand the application of what we've been reading. Okay, why? Imagine your bedroom without closets, drawers, shelves, or bags. Just a room with a bed. Kind of like this is how I picture that being. A room with a bed and a teenager in it. This is what I picture. This is not what you want your cells to look like. Evolution, natural selection, has not favored messy cells. Where would your stuff be? Would you be able to find what you needed? How efficiently could you get ready for school in the morning? Would all of your school items be together when you sat down to study? No. The compartments you use in your room, the closet, the drawers, help you organize items by category so that all the items that you need to get dressed are in one place. All the items you will need for studying are in another place. This compartmentalization improves efficiency. Cells also need organization to improve efficiency. The compartmentalization of cells is achieved by dividing up areas in the cell with membranes. A plasma membrane compartmentalizes internal structures, while the cell membrane acts as a boundary between the cell and the external environment. Okay, so if I can give you a visual, this is not what your cells are like. This is what your cells are like. Neat, compact, a place for everything, a place where jobs can be done, a place where storage can be. They have waste paper baskets. They have transportation systems. They are highly organized, highly efficient. How can this be accomplished? Through membranes. And membranes are made up of lipids and proteins and carbohydrates, all these macromolecules. So this shows you that compartmentalization. It's compartmentalized through the use of membranes, and each of these structures in here, probably remember back from 7th grade, are called organelles. And we're going to start looking at the function of these organelles as we move forward. Okay, so go ahead and read the first question. I'm going to do the first question with you because I think it's kind of hard. So this question here says, look at this structure here. Where do you think, what are some things you recognize from your macromolecules unit? So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video if you're my sub and let them think about this for a minute. Okay, so here's some things I think you might notice. I think you might notice this is a phosphate group. Maybe not. If you don't, this is not a huge deal, okay? But I'll go through the big things I wanted you to see. If you didn't know that was a phosphate group, that's okay. Okay, I hope that you would see that this is a lipid. It's made up of CH and there's no oxygen in there, so that makes it a lipid. And then I'd hope you also see that this part right here is a double bond there that makes it bent. That's a unsaturated. And that's important because it makes the structure be less dense and gives it fluidity. So when stuff's really dense, that's when solids are formed. And with structures like this, and if they all look the same, these little hanging down parts all look the same, they can fit nicely together. They can like stack. And when they stack, they can become really close to each other. And this part here gives it some fluidity. So your membrane has some fluidity. Okay. In fact, it's called the fluid mosaic model of the cell membrane. Okay. And then in the video that I'm having you watch, they'll go through a little bit more. And you don't have to know like the ester groups. That's really not as above our level. It's a little more college level. But you being able to look at this molecule and see some of those patterns we looked at from our macromolecules, that's right where you're at. Okay, pause the video and we're going to go ahead and do the next questions together.